Okay, so first, let's go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do.
All right. Hi, my name is Ryan, and this spelling is Rian. And so hearing people like to call me Ryan, and that's what it sounds like. But deaf people see my name and they say it looks like rain, so that's why I got this name sign, the sign for rain. I was born and raised in Jamaica, and I moved here to Oregon about 12 years ago, and I completed my BA and master's degree at Gallaudet University, and I was involved in disability advocacy there. And I work here in West Oregon University in the Office of Disability Services as an assistant director for accessibility and inclusion of both deaf and hearing students with varying disabilities.
That's cool. That's cool.
Oh, and then let me go back a little bit too. I'm also a deaf interpreter, work at different events, but I really have a focus in music, music translations, musical interpreting, and performances. So I'll work at different events involved with that. Involved in different committees and advocacy associations for disability rights and accessibility.
All right, that all sounds really cool. That's awesome. Everything you do is really cool.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so
So I became a DI because, well, you have to understand that term DI was something that I was doing without knowing. Um, there were some of us who were working as DIs in Jamaica, but we didn't have good quality interpreters. A lot of the interpreters in Jamaica, learning Jamaican Sign Language are typically newer, or they're teachers or parents, or they come in. Oh, I want to learn JSL, but there's no certification program, and a lot of those interpreters we really struggle to understand. So me and a couple others went ahead and took those interpretations and made them a lot clearer in JSL. And so that's a role that I've had for a long time, for about 10 years before I moved here. And so yeah, 15 years now, I guess, but I had never known that that's what it was called. That was a label that was beknown to me before I came here, and it wasn't until I moved here, I think it was a few years ago actually, that I saw that title. I was like, oh, DI, that's what that is. So that was new for me. And again, I had already developed that confidence for that skill, and it's different, from going from ASL to JSL and back and forth. So, but I went ahead and took that on and became involved, and I've been involved as a DI.
wow, that's really cool. That's a really interesting experience. And to be honest, this, deaf interpreter is new to a lot of people. There's a lot of people in the community that aren't aware of that. And, me myself as an interpreter, hearing interpreter, I've been professionally interpreting for about 3.5 years now. And to be honest, I've worked with like a deaf interpreter, a certified deaf interpreter, just maybe 2 or 3 times, and that's it. That's
Yeah,
it. It's really rare. It's
yeah,
growing.
it's growing now. Yeah, hasn't burst yet.
So again, I'm really excited. That's another reason why I'm really excited to talk with you today.
Thank you. All right, so the next question. Okay, so why is a DI important? DIs are necessary because with language barriers that are there, even if you have a hearing interpreter who's qualified and certified and they've got it all together, still there are going to be some instances where there are going to be severe language barriers. And not everyone, can have that accessibility to that same language. Sometimes you will have people, who will have that understanding of the hearing interpreter, but they don't need anything in between. But there are some, who, and I don't want to call it, lesser language or anything like that, but that's a language they grew up with. That's their background, and that their accessibility is different.
Right.
So as a DI, it's necessary to be there to bridge that gap. So if there's a situation, with important doctor's appointments or a medical appointment, legal situations, criminal justice system, it's, one misunderstanding can make the biggest difference. It could hurt someone at a medical appointment, or it could send someone to jail. So it's so important to have a DI to make sure that the conversation and communication is there, is understood, is smooth. Yeah. And then the next question, how has Black Lives Matter impacted me as a Black male interpreter? So right now, what's happening with BLM, with Black Lives Matter, wow, it's really put a spotlight on different Black people and their jobs, and revealed a lot of discriminations too that have come up. And so for me, I don't only experience racism, I also experience ableism. Oppression of someone with a disability, or feeling like I'm not capable when I am completely capable. Experience autism, and even as an interpreter, as a DI, still, when I go up on stage, sometimes, I'm the only Black person there, and I can see, and I call it white gaze, where I feel their eyes on me, and I feel this added pressure. I have to make sure that my signing is a lot more cleaner, and I have to clean it up, and it's really hard. Sometimes, I go in and I'm ready and mentally prepared, but it's exhausting. With that white gaze, I feel like I'm constantly having to code switch.
It's a lot of work, right?
Yeah, it's exhausting. It's really exhausting. And also, with job opportunities, they would come up once in a while. People would say, okay, you're skilled, but they wouldn't give them, to who they know, and that would be the situation. So, sometimes for Black History Month, or for Martin Luther King event, that's when they come and hit me up. But it was very much tokenism.
Tokenism, yes, yeah.
But because of that, I wasn't going all the time. I was, it was once in a while that I would get a job. So because of that, and because of Black Lives Matter putting that spotlight on, it's so many discussions are happening, so many events are happening, and I've started, to get called into so many more things, and that's exhausting too, but we should have had that before now. So I'm great that it's happening, but we need to take a break sometimes too. So it's good, but at the same time, we need to really think about, Black interpreters and their mental health, and the different organizations, and making sure that we're matching different communities, that we are taking the time to, for the interpreter to get there and make sure that everything's good. But we see a lot of Black interpreters, start the field and then they disappear. And there isn't a support system. There's a lot of isolation, yeah. And we need to develop some kind of support group that's ready. So once they show up, we're there to support them. We're there to encourage them and nurture them and take care of them.
Yes, that's the thing.
So so we need that. And with what's happening now also, I've learned a lot. And, I look forward to the future and the changes that are coming. So, yeah.
Alrighty. So, I just want to add a really quick question. So do you have any advice for any hearing interpreters as to how we, while we're working with DI, how we can better support you? Like, is there etiquette? Because, with that handful of times I had with my experience, there were times where I just slipped my mind, just because I'm so used to having a hearing team, so there was some faux pas I would commit. Like, I would walk in front of the deaf person, or I'd forget to feed them. Like, there was a bit of information I forgot because, again, I just rely on them being hearing. But I'm like, oh, no, wait, they're not hearing. And so I'm just like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. And I've been lucky because they've been really sweet to me. They've been really patient with me. They're teaching me. So I feel really fortunate that I've had some really friendly deaf interpreters that I've worked with. But I just don't want to be inadvertently oppressing them or excluding them, So is there any advice you could give for hearing interpreters?
So yes, something, that white hearing interpreters can do to better support interpreters of color, not just as interpreting, but in general, start before the assignment starts. It doesn't start when you get the job. It has to start way before that. How many times when you show up to interpret something and you think, oh, wait, I have a question, ask your Black friend, ask your community members, what the sign for that is, or how to say that. There's a lot of added pressure that happens with that. So before we get involved, like in the deaf community, when you want to become an interpreter, you have to get involved in the deaf community. You have to get out, and you have to socialize, and you have to learn from each other. That's a necessity, that's a requirement, and it should be the same, in other communities, like in the Black community. It should be a requirement to go out and get involved. It's not just one white deaf community. There are so many communities out there. And you have to be engaged, and you have to do the work, and you have to have those dialogues and have those conversations. And when you socialize, you learn so much. And it's so much better than doing it on the fly in the assignment. And you have to socialize, you have to have those dialogues, go to different community events, Black community events, and you learn so much more. And, so when you try to figure things out on the fly, that instance happens less. And that's in general, have that diversity, because when you come together as a team, and both of you have been doing that work as a team, there's more diversity that you can bring to the table. And so, that's how you do it. Also, it's important to be open-minded. Sometimes it's impossible to know everything. Something that you say might offend someone, and you have to be willing to listen to what that feedback is. You have to make those adjustments, be supportive. It's important to not be defensive. You can't say, well, I didn't mean it that way. No, you have to be careful with that.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so what's next? How do we get more BIPOC people as deaf interpreters? How do we recruit more? So there's a big market out there right now. But you have to understand that we are acting as gatekeepers, in our field, and that really marginalizes a lot of people. There's an expectation that you have to sign this way and that way, and it has to look exactly like this, and you have to have these requirements. And for Black people, their signing habits and their hand shapes are going to look different to a white person. And that's, people think, well, that's why we have Black ASL. So people say, well, you have to sign the right way. But that right way has that white influence, that has so much white influence in what it's supposed to look like. And so Black people feel discouraged. There's a lot of code switching that has to accommodate that. People who are Black and have their signing styles aren't able to feel like they can be their natural self when they sign and when they do that. Because those people who have set up that right way have their own signing style at home, and it looks that way, and they go out into the community and they interpret, and it's going to look like that. But for a Black person, how they speak, how they sign at home is going to look very different. So they have to relearn the whole right way to sign and accommodate and manage that. So we really have to break away from that. We really have to broaden our horizons of how we think that there isn't one right way.
Yeah, there's not one way. There's so many different ways to sign.
Right. And, this requirements of four-year college, and you must be certified. So many BIPOC people lose out on opportunities, and...
That's the thing, yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of people that get disqualified and that get left out of that, and it's really unfortunate.
It's not fair.
Right. So when you're looking to hire, in your advertising, you have to think about where it's going to be received by POC people. You can flash it out there and expect Black people to show up, but they don't show up. You have to go to those areas, and you have to be willing to pay a little bit extra to help for relocation. You have to be willing for that expense. And, people might say, well, that's not, fair payment. But again, we have to raise the bar to help people to get equality. We have to get equity first.
That's the thing. Yeah. It's kind of like you have to compensate for that power imbalance that's happening,
Yes.
Like we have to restore the balance.
You have to. No, it's exactly that, because, equality will always look imbalanced until we have equity.
Right. We need to achieve true equity before we can have equality. Otherwise, that imbalance is always going to be there.
So there's a few things, we need to change. We need to have, to generate more interest for BIPOC. So when you advertise, these musical performances or these cultural events, again, a lot of BIPOC people typically feel, these are white cultural events, or, these are things that don't pertain to me. This doesn't match me. This isn't for me. No. So, the speaker is white, and there needs to be more diversity so that there is more appeal, so that it will generate more interest. So the next question is, what do I want to say to hearing interpreters? Well, I think we've already covered that.
Yeah, we already covered that. That's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we finished that part and we're almost done. So yeah, just to summarize what I've been saying, I think it's time that we really make sure that we are inclusive of diversity, because we serve a diverse community and to the people in our community. So it's important that we have that supply and demand met. There's more of a demand for BIPOC information out there and BIPOC events. And so it's really unfortunate that we can't supply that demand. Right now there's a huge demand, and we can only supply this many interpreters, and we can't match what the need is. So we have BIPOC events, and at the same time we need to have more BIPOC interpreters who are ready to match that demand. Because if we continue to have that lack of supply, we're going to continue to have misunderstandings and miscommunication and lack of qualification of those interpreters. So thank you so much. Thank you. I'm really happy to share, what I know with you. And in the future, if you need more, please let me know. Email me. You can contact me. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I think well, thank you so much. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I have a quick question. Do you have any advice for any other deaf who want to become interpreters?
My advice for those who want to become deaf interpreters to, take advantage of training. There's different, things out there, 40-hour training programs that you can take. So take that and then keep learning. Take the written test, take the performance test, and also at the same time, just because you're deaf, you might feel like, oh yeah, I know what's going on. I'm deaf. I can do this. No, you can be deaf and still not be involved and not know what's going on in the community. So it's important that you do know what's going on. You still are socializing, doing your research, doing your due diligence, because just being deaf is not enough to improve your skill. So you might think, oh, well, it's my language, but that's not enough. Also to, branch out in your work, don't just stay focused on one area. For me, I love music interpreting, and that's where I go, but it helps when I've branched out and, sort of experienced other things, and that helps me improve a certain skill set that will help me improve another skill set in another area. So that's my advice to them out there.
All right, so specifically for BIPOC deaf individuals that want to become interpreters, do you have advice for them?
Well, for BIPOC interpreters, I know that sometimes you can feel isolated and you feel like there's no support, but it's important to reach out, contact different organizations, different deaf organizations, the NBDA, National Black Deaf Association, and I think in DC there's another one, NBIOC, another interpreting organization out there. With hearing interpreters, it's important to network. It's important that we all support each other, and that we have, there's different organizations out there, for Black ASL, for Black Deaf community groups on Facebook that you can join, and I know sometimes it can feel hard, like you don't have a voice. So it's important to reach out to those groups because they can help advance your voice and lift that voice up. And don't give up. You got to keep going. Maybe you won't become the first pioneer, first, deaf interpreter, but you'll get that recognition later. Your work will be recognized. It might not feel like that, but it will later. You just have to keep working, and then you'll rise to the top.
Beautiful. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. And then later, if you need more information, let me know. If you start by Portland again, let me know. If you're out there interpreting or something, we can team or whatever.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll probably be out there for Christmas or Thanksgiving. I'll let you know. I'll be looking forward to that.
Great, that'd be great. I'll be around. But again, if you need anything, let me know.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I'll let you know within the next few days if we need any more from you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you so much. Take care. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.